This is the pre-lab for the mole lab. Now when you open up your exploration section, you can see that there's information about the mole, but you've already learned about that in class. So this isn't new, it's just a nice little review. Same for the conversions and another example of conversions. Both those sections are reviews of grams to mole conversions, which you already learned and have already done homework on for this week probably. And then there's a little bit about what hydrates are. You might read that one because hydrates were covered very, very briefly just to make sure that you can figure out their molar mass. And it's got the typical little questions throughout. Keep in mind, whenever you're doing these questions, I would say at least 50% of the time it's concerning whatever's in bolded in the section that you're reading. So if there's something bold, take note of it because they're probably about to ask you a question about it. And again, that's not always, but often. So we're going to move on to our experiment overview, and we're going to jump to our materials section. This needs an aluminum pie pan, and so whenever you use the burner, you're going to need an aluminum pie pan. You're going to need 5 of them this semester, so you might as well go and get them. They aren't very expensive. And you're also going to have need of matches, and the times you're using the pie pan is with the burner, and so obviously you're also going to need the matches right then. And finally, a cotton ball, like a makeup pad is fine too. And one note on the alum crystals here. So it's really weird, but this can come in a few different phrasing. Sometimes it's called aluminum crystals. Sometimes it's called alum crystals. Sometimes it's in like a little bag. Sometimes it's in like something that looks like an instant oatmeal package. So you may have to scrounge around to find it, but I've never had anyone who didn't have it arrive, for what it's worth. It should be in there. It just might not be what you expected to be named. They also are going to provide you with an aluminum cup, and if you aren't sure, it kind of looks like a mini pie pan. So it's just like a little hand-sized pie pan is what it kind of looks like. And this will be your first time using your digital scale. If your numbers seem really weird, then make sure and mention to your professor so you can figure out if you need to contact Science Interactive about your scale. Remember to use a dedicated notebook for all your labs. Just keep a notebook by your kit or in your kit with a pencil so you can use them the whole time. Also, you will be doing calculations in this lab. And what I have found, this is working with on-ground students, and so you can just do what works for you. But for labs like this one, because it's very similar to an on-ground lab, both parts, is that if students do the experiments and then they go back and they do the calculations after taking a little break, it tends to work better. So the lab is set up to do the calculations while you're going through it, but that's my recommendation is to go back and do. And I'll kind of show you, I'll mention it as I go along. You should watch this video. It's in every one of the labs about the digital scale, so one time you're watching it for all of them. And then here's some info section. Make sure and check this out. And there's a reminder of your pie pan. And don't ever forget your picture section. You're going to need your cotton ball on the balance. Get a picture of that so we can see it with the numbers, what its mass is. And then you've got 3 sets of calculations, data table 1, and you also have question 2 and question 4. And they all have calculations with them. There's some information about calculations. Just make sure that if you write really big and you like a lot of space and it takes 2 pages, just set them side by side and take one picture that includes both of them side by side. Or if you write really, really tiny and you fit all of your calculations on one page, please crop it so that I've got the right pictures and I know what it is. And just try to be neat about it. This is lab, and all the rest of the labs are set up so that the pictures are all worth about 5 points. And so what that means is that you won't be able to pass the lab if you're not uploading pictures. All right, so here's your digital scale. Here's an aluminum cup. Here's a stirring rod, and here's a cotton ball. So I've got my supplies gathered. That's step 1. Step 2 is talking about the aluminum cup. We're pretending the aluminum cup is just aluminum. And it says, look up the molar mass. So, by the way, it's just, you're going to be looking for the aluminum square. It's going to be something like 26 something. So make sure you get all of that number in there. Make sure you grab the right number. And once you get that, then you're going to move on. It says, record the molar mass in data table 1. So data table 1. So I would go ahead and do these molar mass calculations because they're not too hard. So go ahead and do the molar mass from that data table. And then we're going to fill in the next section, massive sample. And then these other columns 2 and columns 3, 4, and 5, I would go back and do those later. At least after you take like a little breather. So we are on step 4. make sure that this says 0 before you do it. Double check that it is in grams. If you're getting crazy numbers, you might not actually be in grams. So make sure you're in grams. And then step 5, place the aluminum cup on the scale. So here we go. We put it on the scale, and you're going to write down the number. Once you write down that number, make sure that you write it all the way over to the last digit. So even if it was like that, you got to include both zeros. Or if it was this number, again, you got to include everything to this 100th position. That's how good your scale is. So now, if you look at step 6, it says calculate each of the following and record your findings in data table 1. Number of moles, number of atoms. By the way, there's an illustration for this at the end if you're needing help with it. So that's the part I would wait on step 6. And then 7, the glass stirring rod is primarily silicon dioxide. So the molar mass of silicon dioxide, notice on the data table, bring it open. So that's the SiO2. So that's just silica. That's what glass is. So remember, it's the molar mass of silicon plus 2 times the molar mass of oxygen, because there's a little 2 there. And then you're going to pick it up, put it on the scale, and you're going to record that number all the way over to the 100th position. Now we're going to go back out of here. And notice 9, it has you calculating the moles of SiO2, of Si and O. So that's the step I would skip there. And don't completely skip it. Like I said, I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying take a little breather. And then finally the cotton ball, it tells you what that one is made up of, and it says to figure out the molar mass of that one. And I've got an example calculation for you for that one at the end, if you're not sure on figuring out all the molar masses. And it says, and then you're going to pick it up, repeat steps 8 and 9, so you're going to place that on there. And then in this case, it doesn't state it clearly, but what you're going to do is you're going to calculate the moles of the C6H10O5 and moles of the C, the H, and the O, and then the atoms of the C, the H, and the O. But again, you can do this after. And here's some steps. Look, there's math spelled out for you. Of course, you did not get 1.00 grams. We are positive that you didn't, because that's not what those aluminum cups have a mass of. And same for this one. And there's also some tips and information on the questions. Notice the questions are broken into points so that you can kind of see what everything is worth and what your answer should include. And then I'm going to go to the other part. So in this other part, waters of hydration, there's a lot of steps in this one. Notice that it's kind of confusing how they labeled it, so make sure and read that section, please, please, please. And again, sometimes how they label it for the bag is a little confusing also. Okay, so photos for the lab. So 4 and 9 are while you're doing something on the scale. Almost always, y'all. If it's having you put some on the scale, there's going to be an option where you're going to want to upload that picture. And then all of these go in photo 1. The calculations for data table 2, data table 2B, and question 1. So they should all fit on one page. It's not a huge amount of calculations for each of those. And a little note, there are some extra photo spots in here, so don't let that get to you. You're going to leave some of them empty. They have 0 point value. Notice there's a little bit more, and we're going to look at step 3 through 5. It says it's a little bit confusing, so we're going to review that step. So put on your safety goggles. Again, you've got your scale. Make sure that it is tailored. And if you read what it says for steps 3, on step 1, just call this cup 1. And then here's on step 5, you're going to call this is step 2. Oops. So step 3, place this aluminum cup on the scale and get the mass. So we got the mass of that one, and then we're going to get it off of the scale, or we're just going to resize it, right? There we go. And the number 2. So we've got a number for this one. I'm totally making up this number, but now let's just pretend that number is 5 grams. That's the empty one. Then you're going to use the second one of these. So here we go. We're going to put it on the scale. It's funny that the scale is being difficult with me right now. And I'm going to pretend it's one of these oatmeal packets, but it could be anything. We're going to bring over the alum, shake, 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 shake. Maybe use your spatula, get some out, and you're going to stop when your scale says 2.00 grams. So then on step 5, it says transfer the alum from the first to the second one and then place it on the scale to obtain both masses. So this one basically has some stuff in it. And you're going to pick this one up. Oops, the whole thing. Up. You're going to come over here. You're going to tilt it in, maybe use something, your little scraping thing, and you're going to grab that little piece and it's going to fall over there and it's not going to be on that one anymore. Then you're going to take this whole thing and you're going to put it back over here. Oop. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Well, you're just going to come over here with the 5, but this is going to be more than 5 because now it has that extra little bit in there. And so that mass right there is what you're going to be putting in the data table. So if you'll notice right here, data table, get to open. All right. So this first step right there, this one here, this is the cup 1. And then this is going to be cup 1 plus the sample in it. So it's this thing together. And then you're going to heat it. So assemble the burner setup. Here's our burner setup right here. And with your Sterno, there's definitely some information. See these instructor notes. If you have any issue with opening your Sterno or using it, there's even a video how to open and light a Sterno burner. So definitely if you have a problem with that, sometimes they can be really hard to unscrew at the very beginning. Make sure you keep the lid on them as much as possible, but not when they're hot. And let's see, so we are going to, it says gather the fuel. You're going to put the pie plate on a solid surface, set the burner on the stand, light it, slide the fuel under the stand, and then step 6F, this container right here is going to go right there on top of the fuel stand. You're going to actually set it on there, but I can't get my picture to look like that. And you're going to heat it for 5 minutes. You're going to let it cool. You're going to put it on your balance. Again, after it's cooled, so like wait 5 minutes more, let it cool, put that on your balance, bring it back over here. You're going to heat it for 5 minutes, put it back over here, and let it cool. So see, you've got these 5-minute sections where you're going to let something cool. So if you are feeling okay and you want to go ahead and go back and do those other calculations while it's cooling, then that's a great thing and a great timing to do it, because this is just a little bit of waiting on this lab. And once you get both of them cooled, you'll notice on your data table here, aluminum after first heating, aluminum after second. So the second one should be less than the first. And then you're going to do the mass of released water, the molar mass of water, and the moles of released H2O. So that one has some math right there. Everything else is math here. And so you might want to wrap this all up and then come back and do the math on this one after you've gotten that done. So if we go on, there's a comment. This lab right here, step 13, is missing instructions. It should say, go subtract the water mass from the original hydrate mass to obtain the mass of anhydrous KAlHO2. So look, this one's data table should be falling beside data table 2, but it actually falls over here. So don't let that throw you off. So the instructor notes tells you what to put in for step 13. And then you're going to write down the molar mass, and then you're going to figure out the moles. And you're almost done with it. The questions do have some calculations, and so there's some extra help. Hopefully that will help you through a good bit of this lab, at least have an idea of what you're doing. Basically, on this one, you're just weighing 3 objects and then doing calculations. On this one, you're weighing some powder out into a container, and then you're heating it for 5 minutes, and then you're letting it cool, and then heat it, and then let it cool. And then you're going to do some calculations. That's the long and short of what you're doing.